Hi there, I am Judy Graybill, International Relationship Coach, specializing in step families, co-parenting with an ex-spouse, and adult children of divorce. Healing hearts one relationship at a time. So today's video is continuing in my series about my stepfamily story. And today's is actually an epilogue to my story, and I'll explain that in a minute, and also some synchronicity and timing and that kind of thing. And so this is the second video in my series, and my intention with this series is for educational purposes only. My goal is to, my intention is to share my story, not because I want to just feel the urge to spill my guts, and it's not to get things off my chest. It's not for healing, even though there may still be some healing aspect for me. I don't know. We'll see. Because I've done so much of the work already. There are just maybe little tiny remnants left. But it is to share my story with a hindsight 2020 view as a teacher. And I mean that also in the way that I'm also a student. I want to help more step families. The reason I got into this career in the first place is because I'm passionate about helping other step families. When I left my step family just 13 years ago, this past September, last month, September 2019, when I left, I was confused, I was angry, resentful, sad, depressed, heartbroken, all those things. And I had forgotten how to have fun. I had forgotten how to be happy. And it took me, and I had one goal, which was to be happy again. And it took me years. Well, maybe that might be overstating it. The healing process is an ongoing journey. I mean, you're never really done once you start the journey. But anyways, it's because of that healing that I can actually talk to you today. But the reason why I'm doing these videos, and the reason why I even am a coach in the first place, is because I want to save some of that frustration and anger, resentment, and some of those struggles. I want to save other step couples from having to go through that breakup process that I went through. Because not every couple, there's so many, the separation or divorce rate for remarriages is so much higher than it is for first families. I'm talking like 20 to 30% higher. On average, it takes 7 to 10 years to actually feel cohesive in your step family. That's a real statistic. And it doesn't have to take that long. And now, because there's so many resources out there for step families, it really can take a lot less. But there's not very many step family professionals who are single. I'm the only one that I know of, because most of them have this great, they learn lessons while being in their step family and succeeded with those lessons. So I'm coming at it from a different standpoint. I learned about step family dynamics after I left, and I learned what I did wrong in hindsight. And not just what I did wrong, but like what other people in my story really did wrong, if you want to look at it that way. Saying what's wrong or right doesn't necessarily always serve us. It's really just about, these are the actions we took, and this is the results. We took it for these reasons, and most of them are good. They're very good intentioned actions, and a lot of very good intentioned actions result in things we don't want. And I'm going to be talking more about that in the series. I left my stepfamily from a place of self-love for myself. It was the right thing to do for me. And there are other stepfamilies watching. There are other people, you might be one of them, who it might be the right thing, action for you. And yet there are many, many other stepfamilies who have the right foundation in order to work through those challenges. They just don't know what they're doing wrong. They just don't have the right resource. Because I dealt with a lot more dysfunction and even some toxicity, I have a perspective that's different than other professionals. I dealt with a lot more challenges, so I just view things differently. I have different experiences to pull from. Neither better nor worse, just different. So today's video is about what I learned based off of the epilogue. And the main topic is really about how to leave a toxic situation and leave it behind for good. And that toxicity may not be from your ex. It could be from other people in the environment, such as that was the situation with me. It could be just you're leaving dysfunction. It could be drama. It could be other craziness. It could be chaos. There could be all kinds of things to leave. But what I want to help people understand is that leaving that situation, if that's the right decision for you, once you leave it, and then there's a whole nother process to understand how to not walk into it again. How do you not create that pattern? So that in itself is its own skill set. That is its own journey. That was part of my healing process, is to understand how I even got into that situation in the first place. Because I made lots of mistakes in that relationship, but those mistakes came from good intentions. And the other people in that environment, most of them, such as my ex also made a lot of mistakes, but his mistakes also were from good intentions. Also, our mistakes were made from our wounded inner child. I'll talk more about that maybe today or maybe in other videos. And this is how I want other people to start looking at their situation. If people can start looking at the intentions behind somebody's actions, I think it'll be a lot easier to get to a place of compassion and forgiveness and understanding. For me, just because it came up, I have a formula for forgiveness. It's basically understanding plus compassion equals forgiveness. And looking at somebody's intentions is a part of that. Now, there are also toxic people in my situation. Those toxic people do not have good intentions. It is a lot harder to forgive somebody who does not have good intentions. So we'll talk about that in Not so much in this video, but in another video, because the whole forgiveness process is its own thing. Today, it's really about moving away from the toxicity and what do you do to not get into another toxic situation or just another dysfunctional situation. It could be any pattern, any dysfunctional pattern. Maybe your dysfunctional pattern is codependency, because I will be talking about codependency because that is part of my story. Not because I was codependent, but because my ex is. So learn the signs, learn how you contribute to it. And that's part of the journey. That's what you do. And by contributing, I mean like every single person contributes to that situation. As well, I already mentioned, good intentions can still lead to the results we don't want, just as bad intentions. And sometimes bad intentions lead to the result you do want. But then you got to deal with karma later. And this video is not about karma. So in my situation, I guess I'll start with the synchronicity. Today is October 3rd, 2019, and last month, September 2019, was the 13-year anniversary of me leaving my stepfamily. It just so happens, synchronicity, that September 16th is National Stepfamily Day. And then, as luck would have it, on the 19th of September, I went to a family feast at my mom's. She has Alzheimer's. She's in a senior home, and they hosted this family feast, and their theme was a luau. It just so happens that the very last party that I and my ex had hosted had the theme of a luau. That was the theme we chose. It also just so happens that that luau was the time where I realized that I had reached my breaking point. When I knew that I reached my breaking point, that I couldn't deal with the stuff anymore. And I knew that, I had to leave. However, I still chose counseling after that because I still had the desire to work through it. We went to counseling. It only lasted 3 sessions. And I won't go through all those specifics too, but if you know my stepfamily story, then you know that that person was not educated in stepfamily dynamics. Quite honestly, in our situation, it probably would not have helped because of all the toxicity that I'm going to be talking about. I have notes, but I also have a lot of swirling thoughts, so I'm going to look up here and over there while I think and process, because I don't want to ramble. You have a tendency to do that. So, so I got to think where it was. So the reason we leave is its own skill, and it's a part of the journey. Oh, the synchronicity, that's right, I was at the synchronicity. So I went to the family feast for my mom, and it was a luau theme, and it reminded me, it brought me back to those memories, and I was already in those memories because of the 13th anniversary, just following stepfamily day. So I was inspired to start a video series on this video series on My Stepfamily Story. And so Stepfamily Day was on a Monday, the family feast was on a Thursday, and that Friday I recorded my first video. And I thought through the subjects very well, and it was just an overview of themes and stuff I was going to talk about. And then I didn't have a chance to edit it that day because it was late in the day already, and then, the weekend was busy. And then that Sunday, I got news from the extended family that my ex was in the hospital with cancer. It's a very rare form of cancer, and it's quite possible that he's going to pass away because there's no cure. He is fighting it, chemo and that kind of thing. So along with the news came other updates on things that had happened after me. Like, for example, he had a girlfriend after me that lasted a few years. And I actually had already known about the girlfriend. I was happy for him, and I hoped that it would work out. I hesitate to say this, but I'll go ahead and say it. I didn't actually think that it would work out. I hoped that I was wrong. Because I figured that the reasons that I left still existed. And again, I was hoping I was wrong. But as it turns out, I was not wrong. She did end up leaving after a few years, and it was for the same reason that I left. And I'll get back to part of that in a minute. So next I want to talk about, just a second. I still have lots of feelings for my ex. There's still a part of me that loves him and will always love him. For all the problems that we had, I never ever doubted who he was in his heart. And you can tell, I'm getting emotional, and the whole situation brought up a lot of stuff, and that's why it's taken me until October 3rd, today, to actually do this follow-up video, because I had to process a lot of emotions and really think about what I wanted to say next. And it's a process to get to where I'm at today. But I do feel compelled at this time to share that he's a very caring, loving man. He's a very happy man. He's very social, loved. He knew how to have a good time. He loved to have a good time. Very playful. We had a really good time together when it was just the two of us. We had the kind of relationship that we did not have to go out of the house in order to have fun. We could stay home and have fun because he was just that kind of personality, and we had that kind of interaction. We were playful with each other. But we did have date night, and eventually the other problems that we had led into our relationship, and they led into our date nights. So at some point, our date nights ended up in fighting matches, with us just arguing incessantly, sometimes even I know we split up probably like a couple times, and just after a date night. We did break up and get back together many times. Um, um, so, but there's the other side of the coin to how caring and loving he is that he couldn't say no to people. He just couldn't. And that's really, really, really wonderful quality when it comes to, you know, you, whatever it is that you need help with. You need help moving, you need help changing your tire. I mean, we helped strangers change the tire on their car. Repair something, like whatever it was, he would do it. But financially too, he couldn't say no. And that caused problems because we didn't have the money. And before I go any further, I was going to say all this in the beginning. If you're watching this, you may or may not know me personally. If you know me personally, then you know that I don't allow people to say anything bad about my ex. So if you're my friend and watching this, and even if you're somebody who I don't know, it's more of a tendency with friends to side with your friend. And traditionally, how society, girlfriends, male friends, they've always done it. When you tell them your woes about, whatever the ex was like, the natural tendency of your friend is to start bashing the ex. I don't allow people to bash my ex. I never have. I'm only sharing these pain points. I'm going to share my own mistakes as well as other people's mistakes. Just because I haven't got to all my mistakes yet doesn't mean they don't exist. This is a learning tool. I want you to use this information to help yourself or to help other people. That's it. I don't allow any bashing on my channel in the comments. Comments are going to be by approval only, just so that I can screen those out. If you have the tendency, or if anything I say triggers you, maybe even from your own situation, it would be understandable why you would be angry and why you may think that I'm a weak person for dealing with that, or he was a weak person, or there's all kinds of possible really negative things that you could be thinking about me, him, or the other people in the story. I haven't even got to that juicy part yet. And I use the word juicy loosely because that's just a societal thing. We like the drama. But I don't want anything bad said about them either. And if you say anything bad about anybody else, unless it is a teaching point, if you're coming from a place of neutrality and a place of respect and learning, or even teaching other people who are commenting, maybe you have some words of wisdom to share with me. I'm always learning. I'm a forever student as well as a teacher. All teachers are students. All students are teachers. They go hand in hand anyway. So those are the only kind of quote unquote negative or type of comments that are anything that comes from a mean-spirited energy will not be approved, and I will consider that being disrespectful to me. I just have to say that before I go any further, because I am sharing some personal stuff here. But these challenges that I'm speaking about are really about codependency. This is not about one person. I've had lots of codependent clients come to me, and many of them are men, even though stereotypically we think that they're women mostly. It's not. I've had lots of men come to me as step parents or biological dads who were concerned about their ex's family. Men as well as women have come to me, and multiple clients, male and female, have been codependent. It's not gender specific, and it's not specific to my situation. And I really want you to look at the deeper issues with what I'm sharing about the mistakes. So, like, he gave and he gave and he gave. Because he couldn't say no. He was the yes man. Just like that movie, The Yes Man, that stars Jim Carrey. He said yes to all of those fun things, and he also said yes to all of the help, and he overextended himself at times. And that's what my ex did. He would obligate himself to help multiple people move in a day, or help this person move, help that person repair a car, help that person with landscaping job. Like he would plan all of this in the same day, not just like a one time, like every weekend. And then he couldn't do all of them because some of those things took too long, and he was so concerned about hurting people's feelings. It took me a long time to understand this, on why he wouldn't tell people. I didn't at the time understand why he couldn't say no. But I was the one who was cleaning up the mess. When people called to find out where he was, that was me. I had to explain. Of course, I always said nice things. When it came to helping out his family, daughter, his ex-wife, financially, I always said yes, even when we didn't have the money. We didn't actually have enough money to pay all of our bills at the time. I paid the bills every month, and I had to alternate on which utility bill didn't get paid. So nothing got shut off, and I only got one late fee a month because he kept overdrawing on the account when somebody asked to borrow money. Spent easily, some months we spent a couple $100 just in NSF fees. Of course, the people we were asking didn't know this. He didn't tell them. I don't share my personal business. So they didn't know. And he couldn't say no. And when it came to quality time, he didn't have enough energy, emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, any energy left for me. And I used to complain about it all the time. He wasn't working on our relationship. I mean, and this is in addition to the step-family dynamics that were a challenge in and of itself. Huge challenge. I'll be talking about those in other videos, not this one. And the toxicity, which I don't think I'm going to go into a lot of the specifics of the toxicity today. It's just going to touch upon, I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not going to mention any details. Just when I get to that's later. I forgot where I was. The codependency. Oh, not having, yes. So he always put me last, and I didn't understand why. And when I complained to him, he told me that it was because he wasn't putting me last. He was putting me on at the same place as himself, the same rung. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. It took me years to understand this. And yet, and especially because he still would stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning playing video games with his cousin. That was his time. In actuality, he was putting himself before me. But what I didn't understand is that so that's why it looked to me like I was being put last. What I didn't understand till like many years later is that he had no energy left for anything other than that. Like, because he gave of himself so much energetically, emotionally, psychologically, mentally, financially, he had literally nothing left to give to himself or to me. When he was telling me that he was putting me last, what he was actually also saying is that he was putting himself last. He will always put himself last. So when I found the news about him being in the hospital and the cancer, and I found out there was somebody that he dated after me, she left for the same reasons. It didn't work on that relationship. There's another aspect of this foundation. Now I already mentioned the foundation of love that we had, but love is not enough. And that's part of what the lesson I want to share with you. Love is a really, really, really great foundation. But it can't be the only thing. You can't fully love somebody and then have all the rest of your life be in chaos and think that all your relationships are going to work out. Think that your partnership is going to work out. It doesn't work that way. Everything interacts. It's the web. You just might not understand how it interacts. It may take you years to understand it. Maybe you'll never understand it. Maybe you need to have somebody else help walk you through it. It took me years. It took a lot of soul searching. But the other aspect of it is he didn't have closure from his first marriage. The kids' mom. And I talk about this a lot with my clients. You have to process your emotions, whatever they are, whatever your pain points are, you have to process them and get to a point of closure. If you don't get to the point of closure, you cannot move on. And he did not do that for a lot of different reasons. I won't go into all those specifics. Part of it has to do with his upbringing, his beliefs on marriage, his beliefs on commitments and family. He's very much a family man. He very much believed in lifelong commitments. She didn't have exactly all those same beliefs and values. And then, so when their marriage didn't work out, he really never healed from that broken heart. And therefore, his heart was never 100% open to love me in the way that I needed, the way that he needed. And I knew this, and that's why, unless in order for the relationship after me to work out, he would have had to have gone through all that healing. He would have had to go through all that processing and finally get closure from his marriage and get closure from me in order for that relationship to work. I knew that was a really, really long shot because, well, I have a formula for change, which I'm not going to, it's a formula to help navigate this process of figuring out if somebody is likely to change. And based off of this formula, the acronym is AWAIT, AWAIT, awareness, willingness, action plan, implementation, and tracking. And based off this formula, I figured that he was not likely to change. And again, I always add the part that I could be wrong. And in some things, I hope that I am wrong. It took me a long time to get that formula, by the way, too. A lot of education on my part. So that's the foundation of a relationship. So, and you can apply this to your relationship when you're looking at structure, mental, psychological, or emotional issues. Closure or lack of closure falls into that. Codependency falls into that. All those issues. That's also part of your foundation. And when you add those elements into the foundation of your relationship, now you have a rocky foundation. You don't have the foundation that will make your partnership and your relationship thrive and be happy and long lasting. You can change that. You can change that with awareness and the resources and all that other stuff. But unless you go through that process of changing that and gaining what you need, you're still going to have that rocky foundation. So the foundation that the relationship that I had with him had a rocky foundation from the beginning. That's I'm looking at my notes. I'm trying. I don't want to get to the point of rambling. All right. So here's where I get to the healing part. So the reason I left was, for me, it was an act of self-love. It was the most loving thing that I could do for myself. Once I realized, well, I mentioned I had my breaking point. And then I mentioned that we went to counseling and we broke up after three sessions. That was it for me. Like, I had to leave. Now, there is also some toxic people in the environment, and not my ex. And there's two specific people who were the instigators of a lot of drama and toxicity. They weren't the only players, they were just the instigators. They instigated a lot of drama with all these other players. And they targeted a lot at me because I wanted my ex to have firm boundaries. I was trying to get him to say no. The way I saw it is that everybody was trying to manipulate him and they didn't have his best interests at heart. That's how I saw it. So my intentions were good. There's a lot of things that I didn't understand with regard to codependency. Yes, some drug use, some drug abuse, addictions. There's some aspects of human nature that I didn't understand, trying to force issues. I didn't understand stepfamily dynamics. So I was trying to make change. I was resented for it. I already told you about the finances, so I wanted him to say no. Sounds reasonable. I just wanted to have enough money to pay all of our bills. Go figure. I also wanted to have some nice things. He kept giving his stuff away too, and I would buy it. Like there's like this radio. He loved to listen to music while he cooked or did other stuff, and he gave away his radio because somebody wanted it. And so his daughter bought him a new one. He ended up giving it away. This happens, I think, it's to his other daughter. I bought him one. Like, did you see the pattern here? And again, it was just because he was such a loving person. But I was resented because I wanted him to say no. Don't give your daughter the money for the pictures because we don't have it. But let me back up a minute. What I actually, because I'm thinking of a specific situation, it was like, we have like $10 in our account right now. That's it. If somebody is wanting help from you for something, it will have to wait till payday because we don't have it right now. This is that's similar to a conversation I had with him. And the next day, there is a withdrawal on the account with an NSF fee. Drew money to pay for the thing that I told him we didn't have money for. I still loved him. I'm like, just saying. I left for good reasons. The toxicity that was targeted at me, in their perspective, was also a good reason because they didn't know our situation. They didn't know our finances. He didn't tell them. I wasn't going to share our personal business with them. So it was his responsibility to say no, but due to his own inner wounding, his wounded inner child and his scars, he couldn't say no. But they resented me for wanting to change. And so I'm getting to the point of the healing from this. It just so happens that So I got this news about him in the hospital, his condition, everything on a Sunday. Just so happens that that Tuesday after that, I already had scheduled a recapitulation ceremony. I was just a participant in this recapitulation ceremony to bring in to welcome in the autumn, the harvest, and there's probably close to 1,000 people on the call participating. And at the end, she did a cord cutting. And so I did an energetic cord cutting with those two people. Not my ex, the two people. Those two people are still tied to his energy. There's still things at play in that environment that have affected him, are affecting him. And what I didn't realize is all the healing that I've done over these last 13 years, I didn't realize that I still had a cord tied to that toxic situation, to those two people. When I did this energetic cord cutting in the ceremony, I instantaneously felt lighter and better. And I can't even express into words what that looked like and felt like in the week or so after that. There's also other synchronicities in my life too, you know, because we just added hospice onto for my mom, and the hospice is giving benefits that are really alleviating a lot of pressure off of me as the power of attorney for her. So that has also lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. And then with this cord cutting was just like the cherry on top of the icing. It wasn't even the icing, it was like the cherry. And I've been in a tremendously lighter mood ever since. Of course, my heart's still heavy with the sadness of his situation. Like I can't completely alleviate that, because it is what it is, and there'll always be a place in my heart for him. I always want the best. Could have been a very rich man if he had been able to receive as much as he gave. And that is a lesson for every single one of us, every single one of you listening. It's about the balance of giving and receiving. You know, I'm preaching to the choir. This includes me. I have not always been in balance with that either, in all honesty. But that's another that's another video. I'm looking at my notes because I feel like yes, so there's a couple more aspects. I am almost done. So this cord cutting actually will help you sever patterns. So this can help you a lot. Like you might still have a cord to your ex or to other people from your past, and you might not even realize that it's still there. If you're in a relationship with a repeating pattern, it could be codependency, it could be somebody who's a cheater, it could be emotionally unavailable person. There's so many possibility of patterns that we find ourselves in. And I say we because, you know, I'm not completely oblivious to it. I'm only able to actually look at experience and gain insight from it, and we're all sharing together, learning from each other, helping each other. And if you can learn from my experiences, that's great. You might even be able to excel in places where, you know, I'm only stumbling. But patterns. So the cord cutting could really help you a lot if you're in a relationship that's repeating a pattern. You might cutting the cord energetically, and you probably want somebody who has experience with that to help you. There's all kind of, I recommend shamanic practitioners for cord cutting. Like Eddie Mullins, I highly recommend Eddie Mullins. I don't remember all of his titles, but yeah, he helped me with some clearing, and it was like night and day. But the cord cutting can actually really help you, even if you're single. So if you're single and you haven't been able to attract your ideal mate, or if you're afraid to date again because you're afraid of getting into the same situation pattern that you were in before, then maybe this cord cutting type of ceremony will really help you. So that's how the cord cutting can really help you, and that's what it can do for you. And that can make the difference between you being able to have this long-lasting love that you want. I could probably go on, but it would just come across as rambling. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And then also, when it comes to leaving drama behind for good, I want to say that it's not realistic to expect you to be in a relationship that you never argue. Arguing in and of itself is normal. Arguing, discussions, disagreements are normal even in healthy relationships. The quality and quantity of those arguments could help you determine, or help somebody else help you determine if it's actually to a point of dysfunction, and whether that dysfunction is at a level that you cannot self-correct it. Most dysfunctional relationships can be corrected. If there is genuine love between two people, and this is for any couple, if you have a foundation of genuine love and both people genuinely want to work on their own issues and that partnership, it can be corrected. It can happen. And one of the things that I offer, this video was not really meant to highlight my coaching skills or what I offer in my coaching, but if, though, for example, you are in a situation where you're not really sure about that, you're not really sure if your situation can be turned around, like I said, I do have the formula to help you figure it out. It's a process. It's not like it's a cut and dry, you know, I just answer all these questions, yes, no questions, and I know the answer. It's more of a process that you have to go through. So that's what the formula is. It's the await process. So awareness being the first step. I help you determine what your partner's awareness is. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go through all the steps, but I will put a link to my calendar in the description of this video. So if you would like help with, and that's a no obligation, it's a no obligation, free appointment, just one, for anybody who might be experiencing that. So that's just what I'm going to offer to you right now. So that we can talk through that. And so if you're in that space of you're not really sure, am I in one of those partnerships that can be fixed, or do I need to cut and run for out of self-love? I can help you with that. I mean, also, I mean, a lot of times people are just struggling and they're just trying to tweak the wrong things because they're not working on the underlying issues. They're working on surface issues, but not the underlying issues. So my formula can help figure out what those underlying issues are. So if you want help with that, I'll put my link. You can just message me to Judy at stepfamilycoach.com. Or you can make an appointment on my calendar, as I said. I think that actually covers everything that I wanted to share in this message. Yes, there is one other thing. Cutting yourself away from all drama is a skill in and of itself. If it's truly drama and not just arguments in a healthy relationship, if it's truly like the never-ending drama that actually drains your energy, the toxic people, toxic situations, any kind of toxicity, and extreme dysfunction, as far as like the process to get away from that for good, that is a skill. You can't just leave the situation and think that you're done with it and you'll never have to deal with that again. Unless you do your own self-inventory of and recognize how you contributed, even with good intentions, you contributed to that situation. Unless you do that work or have somebody help you do that work to learn how to not repeat it, learn how to be discerning with, and it's not standoffish. It's a very welcoming approach. It is just a discernment of who is in my inner circle, who's going to build me up and help me, who is able to give me an even exchange of energy, and who just wants to drain me, who's just trying to manipulate, control, or sometimes it's good intentions, sometimes they don't mean to, but there's sometimes those drama queens are draining you. Drama kings. I mean, it's not a gender thing for sure. That's a skill. I don't consider it a skill that I help people with per se, but I have done it for myself. So if that's something you're struggling with, feel free to ask me about that, and we can talk about that and see. I would just leave you with one last thing. I forgot to mention these. If you are I know I attract a lot of step-family professionals and self-help people and people who read self-help books. So I want to recommend these two books, especially if you're a step-family professional. This one is Surviving and Thriving in Step-Family Relationships by Dr. Patricia Pappernow. She does a lot of research, and this is jam-packed with results of like not just her own research, but other people's research. So in a sense, it's kind of clinically written, but at the same token, she shares a lot of stories, composite stories, examples, so you can see which story you fit yourself into. And so that's very helpful, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this, especially if you are somebody who is helping other step families. I highly recommend this. And the other one is Secrets to Step Family Success by Gloria Lindermans. Another excellent book, also a little bit clinically written, but she also shares stories, composite stories, so you can fit yourself into the story. And both of them talk about how the step family dynamics interact with a lot of other challenges going on, especially the I don't know they use the term wounded inner child, but that's really what it is, the scars and wounds from our past relationships and our childhood. So they both talk about all of those childhood woundings, how it all comes together in a mix of, and they all interact together. So so my situation, although in some ways it's more extreme than many, it's actually not that unusual. And the other thing that I really like about Gloria Linderman's book is that she talks about the closure aspect. She does a really, really, really great job of sharing the importance of closure from your previous relationships. So I really like that. And if you're not a step professional who is helping and facilitating other step families and step parents, if you're just I shouldn't say just, but if you're a step parent who is looking for help for yourself, not necessarily others, then I would recommend the Stepmom magazine, even if you're a stepdad. A step parent magazine. There's so many support groups on Facebook that I would that are great. So just find one that you resonate with. And I don't know, I'll be sharing more resources and stuff as I go along. All right, and until the next time, I hope you found this helpful. And again, just remember, this is about empowering you. This is just a teaching tool. So please be kind to yourself, be kind to your partner. Try to see the intentions behind people's actions, because that will help you. That will help you greatly when it comes to the discernment piece. Intention, intention, intention. There's still the dysfunction, like I said. But all right. Have a blessed day, evening, weekend, whatever time it is for you. All right. Thank you. Until next time.